After long delays, President Muhammadu Buhari signs Nigeria's 9.12 trillion naira budget into law.
Should Nigeria accept the return of its own bronze artwork on loan, or rather demand its permanent return?
And as World Cup fever spreads, Africa unites to back all the teams from the continent. Africa 54 starts right now.
Hello and thanks for tuning into the show that goes around the continent to bring stories near and far. I'm Chamberlain Oso at Channels Television here in Lagos. I'm joined by Vincent Makori at Voice of America in Washington.
Well, thanks a lot, Chamberlain. I'm Vincent Makori at our global headquarters in Washington, D.C. Happy to be with you again for another edition of Africa 54. Let's start off with a look at a long-awaited 2018 budget that was finally signed by President Buhari. Chamberlain Oso in Lagos brings you that story.
Well, yes, Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari on Wednesday, June the 20th, signed into law the 2018 budget. But the president has a few worries about the document that took the National Assembly 7 months in transmitting the appropriation bill for assent. Our State House correspondent, Gloria Umezoke, reports.
President Muhammadu Buhari arrives his meeting room for the signing of the 2018 appropriation bill into law in the presence of the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, and members of Cabinet and leadership of the National Assembly. The Senate President and Speaker of the House of Representatives were absent. Without any delay, Senior Special Advisor to the President on National Assembly Matters, Senator Ita Enang, presented the document to President Muhammadu Buhari. The president says he signs the 9.1 trillion naira budget of consolidation amidst a lot of concerns.
I am concerned about some of the changes that the National Assembly has made to the budget proposals that I presented. The National Assembly made cuts amounting to 347 billion naira in the allocation to 4,700 projects submitted to them for consideration, and introduced 6,403 projects of their own amounting to 578 billion naira.
President Buhari accused the National Assembly of adding new projects to the budget of most ministries, departments and agencies without regard to their capacity to implement. Examples of such projects in which cuts were made include infrastructure projects in the FCT, cut by 7.5 billion naira, additional security measures for UN building, cut by 3.9 billion naira, health sector facilities, cut by 7.45 billion naira, security infrastructure for 104 unity schools, cut by 3 billion naira, amongst others. Deputy Senate Majority Leader Senator Bala Ibn Na'anla debunks claims that the budget was deliberately delayed.
It's a very delicate issue. If somebody says he wants 500 billion for maintenance of bridges nationwide, and then you expect the National Assembly to say, okay, that budget is approved because it's coming from the executive, we have not done our work. We will be interested in knowing which rule of the roads are you going to maintain, so that, again, we don't give another allocation in the next budget.
Meanwhile, the president has promised to send a supplementary budget to the National Assembly immediately.
The presidency hopes to work very hard to generate the revenues required to finance these projects, but more importantly hopes that the two arms of government will work to improve the budgeting process and revert to the January-December fiscal cycle. From the presidential villa, Gloria Umezoke, Channels Television News.
Joining us now to talk about Nigeria's 2018 budget is Professor Akpan Ekpo. He's the Director General, West African Institute for Financial and Economic Management, WIFAM. Welcome to Africa 54, Professor.
Thank you.
Could you tell us, what do you make of the eventual signing of this budget by the President about 7 months ever since it was sent to the National Assembly and back?
Well, thank you very much. It's better late than never. It's too late, and this is the longest delay we've ever had in recent times. It has implications for the economy, creates uncertainty, and a lot of projects will be delayed. But I think the blame should also be on the National Assembly, because when the President did place the budget before the Assembly last year, 10 October, November, the Assembly said they will not look into the budget until March of this year. So already they added to the delay. I think that as a matter of national interest, they should have looked at the budget immediately, even they're on recess, recall themselves back from recess and look at the budget. Because the delay is unprecedented and it is not good for the economy. So
when you say also to the National Assembly, does that mean that the executive also gets to be apportioned some amount of blame?
Yes, because the executive was about 1 month delay, in my view, 1.5 month delay in submitting the budget to the National Assembly. I don't know what they were doing, so just, if you're on recess, come back from recess and look at the budget, because it has adverse implications on the economy when you delay budgets. We call it structural lags in economics. It creates a lot of problems. And so now you have 7 months delay. It's unprecedented. I think they should have minimized the delay caused by the executive by at least fast-tracking it in national interest.
Now, the president raised some concerns, saying that there's been some cuts in that budget sent back to him, amounting to some 347 billion naira, which reduced some allocation to infrastructure, increasing the budget of the National Assembly. Does this mean, or do you think that this will make it somewhat difficult to implement the budget?
Definitely, it will be difficult. Because if you look at the cuts, they are for capital projects, social investment projects, like the health sector. And so, because not just cutting the budget presented by the executive, the House added its own projects. And so it becomes a little bit difficult for the executive to implement the budget. They have to find ways and means to try to accommodate the cuts by the House. And these are very vital projects of national interest. So I think it will be difficult. But the President, as usual, may submit a supplementary budget, but even that itself, you're not sure it will go through smoothly.
In the final analysis, do you see the President of the National Assembly acceding to the President's demands?
Well, I think they should, in national interest, maybe not accede completely, but at least put the nation at first and stop playing politics with the budget.
All right.
Yes.
So, Akwanekbo, thank you very much for talking to us on Africa 54.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
Well, we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. And check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Coming up, UNAIDS Executive Director says the HIV virus can possibly be eliminated by 2030 with concerted focus on preventive measures. That story after the break.